Each one of us has a story. Our journey has and is continuously impacting us. By listening to my guests share how they are discovering their best self, you will discover the best part of you. All right, welcome to Discover Your Best Self podcast. You guys, I have with me today Miss Paris Tyler, and she's a special guest because she is a PR consultant and she helps brands and companies with their imaging and marketing and getting them out there. And so today we're going to have a discussion on, why is it important to brand yourself? And right now during COVID and all of these, issues that we're having with race and, implicit bias, how can we all be on the same page and getting your message out clearly and correctly so that your brand can keep its the best awareness, or how they want to be perceived in the marketplace. So welcome. How are you?
Well, thanks for having me, Shanice. I am doing well as can be expected during this time. So basically just, maintaining, taking it day by day.
Yeah. And so to start us out, tell us who you are and where you're from.
For sure. So my name is Paris Tyler. I am the founder of Vibrant Communications, which is an integrated communications agency based in Atlanta, Georgia. I have basically had my agency it'll be 4 years come September.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. But I have nearly 15 years experience in the industry, having honed my skills at like large agencies, such as Weber Shandwick and Edelman, as well as working in-house for a stint at Combs Enterprises, which is Sean Diddy Combs' it's basically his corporate entity. So from Chicago to New York, and now I've landed in Atlanta and have been here it's been a year and a half.
Okay, nice. And so how did you start working in the PR field? Like, what was the interest?
Yeah, so I was, during college, I was a part of En-ROADS. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Yes,
En-ROADS.
I am. Actually, I'm from Cincinnati, and so we had En-ROADS. Good. Yes.
Yeah, so in Columbus, Ohio, where I'm from, I was a part of En-ROADS, and my internship was with a regional bank called Huntington Bank, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And, during my third summer, because I first went into college as a computer science major, changed to a marketing major. So I got stuck in the marketing comms department that summer. And I did a lot of comms work where I was like interviewing executive leadership team members, interviewing other Huntington employees. I was helping my manager during this summer internship pretty much like plan the corporate events. So I was like loving every part of it, like from the event planning to the writing the articles piece. I was just learning a lot about the communications industry. And my mentor that summer was the VP of marketing at Huntington, who was a Black woman. And she and I had like our final meeting. And I was just like, look, how do I get into this? Like, how can I get this type of work, once I graduate from college? So she basically explained that, this was more comms rather than marketing, but, communications is a tactic under marketing. So she pretty much just said, you'll probably have to go back to school and see what type of communications or PR programs you guys have. So thankfully and luckily, when I went back to school that fall, we did have a program for PR. And that program basically was that you had to minor in marketing. So my credits ended up transferring over. So pretty much from there was like my interest. And once I graduated from college, I did go back to home to Columbus, but most PR jobs and roles are in major or larger cities. I find that, in the smaller cities such as Columbus, and this is like 2004, it was like you had to be in-house somewhere. And I'm like entry level. So agencies weren't in Columbus, Ohio. So I moved to Chicago. And from there, I was able to get my first job in PR at Weber Shandwick, like 2 years, kind of just bouncing around in Chicago. So yeah, been in the industry ever since. And, I love it. I think to just with nearly 15 years, I've seen like just how PR and communications has evolved. But that's how I got started.
Yeah. And even with now, like your clients, why is it important for them to work with someone like you or a PR firm?
Definitely. So, PR is really all about the relationship, between an organization and its intended audiences. So that can be if you're a B2C company, say just like, a Dove, it's about, your image, your reputation, getting the word out about new products to any type of community initiatives that you have. And then even if you're a B2B, it's about just showing the work that you're doing and proving kind of like your worth to like stakeholders. So it's really about like, shaping the image, all about like sharing your story and storytelling around, your organization's mission, its purpose, kind of like whatever goals or business goals that you have set for the year. Communication, is involved in order to, help communicate those goals to the public. So it's just important from not just during the, when it's kind of pretty much quiet, or if you don't have, big announcements, but PR does help during like crises such as right now with the pandemic, and understanding like how you need to pivot, and how you need to communicate with your audience based on their needs and based on what they're currently experiencing as well.
Right. And with you starting your business, you said about 4 years ago?
Yep.
What were some of the things that what was that transition like? Because a large part of our audience, they are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs, business owners, or, may have a side gig or whatever it is. And so a lot of people are interested in the story behind, how you got started and how you're able to, stay in business, especially right now while we're experiencing, pandemic and everything.
Definitely. So I got started by pretty much, I was working in corporate at Combs, and I had left Combs with the intention of basically like, hey, I need to just probably start consulting until I kind of figure out what my next move will be. But I think there is, fear involved with entrepreneurship and taking that leap, because there's the uncertainty of like a paycheck and having benefits or insurance. So that fear.
And I want to stop you right there, because when you say I was leaving consulting, were you working while you left? Or was it just like, nope, I'm done, and then I'm here? And did you have anything saved? Like, what was that process?
Yeah, so I left Combs pretty much just because I love my experience there. I just was bumping heads with, someone who was, my manager.
Yeah.
I love the experience. Like, I loved the people that I met while working there, whether internally or out externally. I left without anything kind of pretty much set up. So I got scared, and I went back to agency life, which was something I had swore off, because I was just like, I've been there, done that, and I really wanted to be in-house and corporate, but I wasn't quite. But then I kind of had this epiphany when I went to South Africa in 2016, like, I think I should just start working for myself.
Yeah.
So, but I got this fear and went back to agency life. And after 3 months of working at this agency, I was let go for not being a fit for the culture.
Oh.
Pretty much,
Interesting.
Yeah. That's like a whole nother story.
Yeah.
I also feel like it was God's way of pretty much just pushing me out there, because, he hears, our passions. He hears he knows the desires of our hearts.
Right.
And I think that especially when we put that into the atmosphere and speak those things, he'll make them so.
Right.
So I definitely, then when I was let go, this was the summer of 2016, I just pretty much pulled myself together, because it was a traumatic experience, but put a website together, changed my LinkedIn profile, put out an email to my community and my network, pretty much just telling them like, hey, I am consulting right now. I would love to be considered for anything that you see come across your website. And from there, within like a month, I had 3 clients.
Wow. It's just putting yourself out there, just saying, hey, this is me, this is what I'm doing, and you never know where that message lands.
And
exactly. Just being ready.
I mean, I think sometimes you don't understand the actual value of your network.
Yeah.
Until you put it into motion, until you actually send that email, you start, sending text messages or letting people know what you have going on. And sometimes, it's like like the old saying says, like, closed mouths don't get fed.
Yeah.
So like, until you vocally just communicate what it is that you need,
Yeah.
people just they can't read
And
minds.
you put it in the atmosphere, so it's like, hey, now that it's here, it's going to come back because now I've presented that opportunity.
Exactly.
Before you weren't open to it. You hadn't even said anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I said, I was like, just talking to a friend, like, I think I just want to go ahead and work for myself, and got scared. And then, I was pushed out to where it was like, okay, look, you gotta make it do what it do.
Yeah. It is what it is.
I was like, okay. I had a mentor too in Chicago. His name is Ron Childs, and Ron and I worked in Chicago at an agency called Flowers. And Ron, I was just like, Ron, how do I get started? And
yeah.
He was like, put you a website together, send out an email, and
let's get to it.
And just get to it. And literally just taking his steps, using my own, just wisdom and just experience and putting that into play, was able to just go ahead and make it happen. And here I am 4 years later.
Yeah.
And, it's been quite an experience for sure. The transition, I will say, is that, you're working for yourself, so you have full autonomy and full control of what your culture, your business culture, of what your brand will be.
Sure.
And, it's definitely been an experience of understanding like what works, what doesn't work. And even just leaning on other entrepreneurs and other consultants to help me understand that, it's definitely going to be like ebbs and flows and ups and downs.
Yeah.
But it's just definitely still rewarding at the end of the day that this is my work.
Yeah.
I'm adding value to, whether it's people or companies. And, it's just like, I can't even say it's like little me, but it's just like, oh no, I deserve this. I am talented. I know my.
And you don't have to wait for someone else to validate that for you.
Exactly. You don't have to go through all the, sign-offs and approvals. It's definitely, like me. And then I do work with, young ladies in New York City, and I work with young ladies here in Atlanta who have supported me and who are talented. And I just want them to feel empowered, because I know when I've worked, jobs and just didn't feel like I had a voice, or didn't add value, or felt like I couldn't add value. And I want them to know, like, they don't have to feel that way. Like every idea that you have, every, every experience that you've had, it can bring to the table for the clients that are under Vibrant Communications. I want to hear it. I believe that you're worth it, basically.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And like, how would you say your business has been impacted right now during this time?
Definitely. So part of, Vibrant's capabilities includes events, and, events being canceled for 2020 has definitely, had an impact on not only just revenue, but just even the work that we're able to showcase or highlight by, producing and executing said events. And even just, prospecting, and as, business development and talking with, prospective clients. I've had conversations, and those prospective clients have had to, put a halt because of how COVID has impacted their business, where they may not be able to go ahead and retain an agency for a launch or for whatever initiatives that they were actually planning on executing for this year. So it has been also just me understanding how I need to pivot, like how can I lean into other capabilities and sell those, and also just, highlight those to not only my, existing clients, but then also prospective clients as well, because, there is not one person that the pandemic has not impacted. Yeah, everyone's felt what COVID-19 has basically done, whether it's like job or health. I think it's been quite a year in that regard. So just even now, I will say that we've been able to maintain and sustain, which is, a complete blessing. But it's also something like, not expected. And it's like the first time you've ever experienced something like this, where a global pandemic is impacting not only your business, but your client's business, and understanding how I also need to consult them on how to maybe pivot, because the media landscape has changed in a way where they're covering more of the hard news, whether it's the global pandemic, whether it's the Black Lives Matter movement that is currently taking place, and finding unique and creative ways to share their stories and how they're showing up during this time. As also key.
Yeah. And why is your messaging so important? When you're working with these brands, and especially since people can't touch, or be there in person, and everything is digital and media or social media, whatever it is, tell us about the importance of making sure that, whatever company that you work for, or if you're starting something on your own, why is it important to make sure you have that branding or messaging or someone like you to help them with that? Because we can't go in person.
Yes. Yeah. I think, so where someone like myself, like whether it's communications or PR or marketing, I think where we come into play is like advising and consulting to make sure your messaging isn't tone deaf during this time. You don't want to appear insensitive. You don't want to, I think, just, of course, everyone needs to, continue with operations and that we're trying to sustain. But I think wanting to weave in messaging that connects with your audience. So whether it's like if you're donating or supporting essential workers, with their, limitations or what they're experiencing, or even just like sharing messaging around how you're supporting the Black community or how you're looking to fight systemic oppression, right now during this time is also key. So wanting to just, think about ways of outside of the solution that maybe you might have like thought of a creative idea that's very relevant during this time because like what we've seen or experienced, like I think during times of depression and, like recession, there are great ideas that are formulated and just, come to fruition. But then also just wanting to make sure like it's a time now, or is it, we need to work out some kinks, because with myself as well, everyone has a great idea, they have great products, but then you want to make sure that there are no holes, help you in creating and shaping your story. So it's everything from social to online to the actual product or the service that you're providing. Is it seamless? Is it a seamless experience? Are there, some challenges where the media may see this as like, hey, that's actually, they don't have it all the way together, because you ideally you essentially kind of only get one shot, and you want that one shot to be your best shot.
Right.
You want to really launch with a bang, and sometimes, people can be too early for PR, and I think it's about maybe hiring someone to just help with understanding strategy for when it is time. This is how it should be. Like your rollout campaign can.
Yeah.
And everything can come into play.
And I wanted to ask you, I'm not going to, because I don't know if you have NDAs or whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you do. But, some of your clients that you have, if they've had issues with, with press or like marketing or even branding, or people having a misconception of their brand, especially during this time, how do you orchestrate that? Or do you stay silent, or, do you kind of wait for things to calm down,
Definitely. So I can't speak to a specific client, but I can speak to kind of like what I've seen or just witnessed during this time. And I think that there's silence can, be like complicit or just, you don't care. So I think during this time, it is making sure that you have like a crisis communication strategy or plan into play, that you really are understanding your key messages. Like, what are the 3 to 5 messages that the public should know about, like who you are as a brand. And if there are new, if there's just kind of like anything that's new, of course we want to weave that in and shape that, and of course revise and edit, because key messages can always be, edited. They can be updated,
right,
based on kind of like what's in play or how the company is shifting or pivoting. But I do think that during this time we've seen whether it's through Black Lives Matter and seeing some brands who literally just continue to post and act like, there are innocent, Black and brown people being murdered, to also like during the pandemic, I think that I think this is like kind of the year of like leading and moving with empathy, where it's just that, of course, we want it to be business as usual. Like we can see that across the country, and even how the current, commander in chief is also just kind of communicating with American people. Like there's not, a virus that's pretty much like affecting people and their businesses.
Right.
And while the economy is important, we still have to understand that people are concerned about, they may be concerned about homeschooling.
Right.
And their child school. So, I think there's just how it's like communicating in a way that really resonates with your audience based on kind of like what you're seeing. And I think that's when you have to, what I do internally with I always like monitor the media. So my team and I, we monitor based on like whether it's our brand and how they're being communicated on social or in the media. We're looking at the industries that our clients are a part of and what conversations are taking place there to also help us with strategy and how we maybe pivot and shift based on that. Even understanding like what media companies are going through, because those are the people that we lean on to tell our stories or shape our stories, and even influencers. And if influencers are they're kind of like, hey, I'm just taking some me time, or media companies are like, we have to do a round of layoffs. We have to understand that things may take a bit more time to hit if we have news, or maybe we come back to the table with a collaboration opportunity for these influencers in a month or so, based on just kind of like what we're seeing on social and online.
So do you, in your opinion, when you're looking at some of these large companies, I know we kind of spoke briefly about this, how do you see them addressing, because they know who a lot of their buyers are? I just saw a commercial with Sprite. I thought it was a great commercial, actually. Yeah, you see that one?
I saw that one,
yeah. I thought it was really well done. It was very...
Are you talking about the one where they were highlighting like Black creatives?
Yeah, it was. Well, it was kind of like that. And there's we understand you guys basically saying we're the leader, and And I remember back in the '90s, they used to have these things called cool parties, and in New York, and they would invite influential people, sports, your pop stars and all of them.
Right.
And they would have the cool hunters, and the cool hunters would go out and literally be in the neighborhood looking for what was trendy, and that would literally reflect on TV, and you would see that. And so how do you see other companies who are trying to do the same thing that maybe weren't doing it before, and they want to connect and they understand, but it can't be forced either, right?
Yes, it can. Yeah. So I think it has to be, of course, you want it to be authentic, but if they're saying like, hey, we don't have enough diverse talent at the table, or we're not connecting, or if our messaging isn't connecting to these audiences, whether they're multicultural, Black, Latinx, like how can we make sure that we are? It's by having those voices at the table to be a part of like the decision making and the ideation process as well. But yes, to your point, like I think during this time, what we've seen is consumers holding brands that they value and respect accountable. And I think it's important that we do that. I think now more than ever, people are buying with intention. Like they're looking at how their brands are showing up in their community efforts, in their social justice efforts. And that's important. So like you said, it can't be forced, but it does need to tie back to their mission and values and the overarching strategy. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to be said if they're looking at your board, or they're looking at the marketing team, and we're not seeing anything but
even Vogue. I was really surprised at Vogue. I said, okay, Vogue, okay. They've really become more, it feels like I don't like friendly. I always felt intimidated by like, oh, Vogue isn't for us. That's not our
Oh
thing.
yeah, Vogue
And
has definitely shifted over the
yes.
years with their content, with because they used to kind of be seen as luxury, but they're covering more non-luxury, companies and brands. So it's definitely shifted. And I think where that comes into play is like they have for example, Teens Vogue editor is a Black woman, and thinking about before her was a Black woman, Elaine, Welterworth. So I think when you have people in those positions, you'll see that shift. You'll see that shift with how they're connecting with a more like maybe a millennial or multicultural audience.
And one thing I wanted to kind of bring up too, just because we are Black women, and we've kind of been at the forefront, I think, of these conversations as well, but also have been neglected too on other things. But one of the conversations I had with a group of professionals was that Black women, we are the leading trend makers with fashion and makeup and hair, and people want to imitate us, and it's the truth. And so when we're not seeing ourselves, and we already know this, right? We don't see ourselves, and now people are recognizing and understanding that you have to show that there has to be a balance somewhere, and they're seeing that, and we also have to be paid too. So,
oh my gosh, definitely.
So it's a lot of this conversation going on, but I'm just wondering how long it will last, and it's just like, are people going to get tired of it, and how much of that do we keep, bringing up and making sure that we are being thought of and we're taking care of ourselves, because no one else will think of it if we're not.
Right. Well, first, to your point of like how long will it last? Hopefully, we can see some real action that is just long lasting.
Right.
That isn't like, for a season, but we are seeing that hiring practices, pay equity, everything to like even like campaigns and how they are communicating with their intended audience is just like shifting and just changing, because I think that what we want this to be is not just a moment,
right.
but a movement. That's the word that's been pretty much going around. And when it comes to Black women, we are the ones that are pretty much oftentimes overlooked, when it comes to certain roles, when it comes to even pay equity. It's so unfortunate, but I've been seeing and I've been hearing that companies are, there's roles that are available, pretty much open that they're hiring for, and they want more Black candidates. But what's, to me, the challenge is I hate that it has to take all of this, because there's how many HBCUs, in the country, how many, networks that are, whether it's Black MBA to Black PRSA, that you can just tap into, that are resources for you to find, find us. And I think that's what's always just, to me, that there's just a bit of laziness, because this is work. And this work that is just now getting started, and we still have a long way to go. Like, this is not over yet. This is definitely.
But I do think we've made progress. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do. I think the fact that the conversations are happening. I think the fact that the media is still covering too shows that they're not letting a lot of this go. Because I even just saw an article this week about agencies, from small to the large agencies, that they need to release their diversity numbers, like how many people are on staff, how many are in executive leadership roles, and because there has to be change, even I think in agency life, especially within the PR industry, where I think that we are hired. You can find us, you can hire us, but then what about retaining us? What about basically empowering us? growing us to be, managers, not just from the entry level and internships, but to actually be managers and vice presidents and, ultimately be SVPs and running the practices of these global and national agencies. So yes, so I think there's still work to be done, but we are, I think, making some headway. And I just hope that we don't let up, we don't let our foot up off the gas, and we, keep our foot on, these companies' necks.
I like foots on neck. I like that.
And I think too, just even like the budgets, because I think there comes the conversation of multicultural communications. And I've worked, at a multicultural agency, and, we don't want to necessarily, sometimes we get the crumbs, of a budget, which is, kind of pretty much unfair.
Yeah.
And we have to work with like whatever is scrapped. And then sometimes I've worked at companies or worked at agencies where I've heard that the work that kind of like that communications that is for and intended for multicultural audiences gets lumped into general market, but that's not fair either, because how you connect and engage with audiences vary, from Black women to even Black men to Latino women to white men. Like those audiences cannot just all, fit in one, one size doesn't fit all.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. And so it's something that I've noticed between like all of the entrepreneurs or people that I've had on the show, whereas your network, which we kind of touched on a little bit, is a huge part of your business and how you're able to maneuver and all of that. So how important is relationship building to you and your business?
Oh my gosh, it's so important. And I will say, I think that another piece, the question you asked earlier around COVID and how it's affected my business, I think the other part is that the networking that I heavily rely on by attending like conferences or events.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my clientele, whether they've come through like an associate or a friend, I've also met them in person at an event.
Right.
And relationship building is just really key. You just never know how it may add value to you as a professional, or even to just your business, or to someone else even. I've definitely made connections with people where it basically resulted in a connection or an introduction to maybe a peer of mine.
Yeah.
But I will say, just even keep sustaining those relationships too during this time. Remembering that, like setting up a Zoom call with someone that, who's a journalist that I basically have worked with, with client stories, to even just a fellow woman entrepreneur, because I think that this experience as an entrepreneur, it really is like, being able to talk to someone and vent to them, or hearing about their wins and hearing about, the success that they're seeing can sometimes fuel you in a way, because there's days where I may just be like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? You kind of doubt yourself. And I think having a tribe of fellow entrepreneurs and small business owners is always important, and just maintaining those relationships, because you just never know how they may be able to support you. Whether it's personally, as you may be going through a little bit of anxiety, to also just, maybe it's remembering that they may have met someone or got connected to someone who may be able to support or help you.
And what does that look like? So and I'm asking because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I really want to, I might know this person, or how do I get that introduction to, this client, this person that I want to be my client, so even from your own experience and you getting clients, what does that look like in using that relationship, or using someone that, you've talked to earn business? And some people are like, well, that means I'm a user. I don't want to, do that, or ask someone. I don't want to ask anyone to help me. And you shouldn't see it that way.
Right. I think it's all about community, and then also it should also, in regards to your question of just like using, I it shouldn't be seen as that, because it
Mm-hmm.
should be about tapping into your community, and your community should always be one that can support you in a way, whether
Right.
it's like connect resources. I think that's all about whether it's personal community, like family, friends,
Right.
industry associates, that's how it should be. And I think it's also maintaining the perspective too of, if you're asking for support, being able to also offer support too. Just kind of like an exchange of, whether it's like, hey, how can I help? I recall just helping, women and men in my community, and
Mm-hmm.
then they have in turn asked, like, hey, how can I be a resource to you, or how can I help? And I remember a friend last year when I just moved to Atlanta, I had connected her with a friend of mine
Mm-hmm.
who was a recruiter, and she in turn, like, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And me being new in Atlanta, I was just looking, like, I had friends.
Yeah.
I was looking for a tribe of like women entrepreneurs to just, connect and build with. And she connected me with like two women, and to this day, like, I just got off a Zoom call with one like
Yeah.
2 weeks ago. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all about just making sure that you're showing up and supporting in the same way for support. So whether it's like posting one of their posts on your Facebook, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, support, to offering your assistance or offering your help. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's just wanting to make sure that there's always an exchange of like, whether it's resources or ideas, and so that they don't feel like, you're using them, or just wanting
Right.
to, figure out like who they're connected to so you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
get that client and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that you shared that, because I think a lot of times, like I said, people are very hesitant to ask or say like, oh, well, these are the things that I want to do, but they're not really sure how to approach that. And they,
Mhm.
they want to build their network. So hearing it from someone who had to do that, sometimes will help people change their perspective on that.
Yes,
Um,
for sure.
and so I wanted to ask, I love asking this question, and I ask
Mhm.
everyone this. Tell me, what does it mean to discover your best self?
Yeah, so I think that discovering your best self is all about just like progressing. I think we're all works in progress. Like, we're all you learning, every day, and growing every day, and it's tapping into, I think, like your desires, like your heart's desires and your goals, and just even understanding how to get to that point. I don't think there's ever like an end result. I think we all like
Mm-hmm.
evolve, and we all, we're allowed to change our minds about like kind of like what we want and what
Mm-hmm.
we hope to be, or hope to be seen as.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's all about just like evolving and growing, and really learning more about like you and your life's purpose
Mm-hmm.
in this world.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I like that answer.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I would just say definitely during this time, you know, that it is a time of where it's. I know that the country is somewhat reopened, but I it's really time out to really kind of dig deep.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's skills or reading books about just like understanding your business and understanding your industry, and even when it comes to like communications and PR, there's like so many resources that are like online, that are able to just kind of support businesses that are probably in that kind of like new stage
Mm-hmm.
of launching. But then I'm also like happy to consult and
Mm-hmm.
talk to you, and understand your company's goals and needs, to see how maybe I could support,
Mm-hmm.
or even just offer some like resources that may be more like budget friendly at the time, because I know that everyone's going through this pandemic, and the purse strings may have tightened up, but
Mm-hmm.
there's always options, and alternatives to the norm that can really support and further your growth.
Yeah, for sure. And so where can people find you?
Yes, definitely. So my website, my business website is vibrantcoms.com. And then you can follow us on social media. My personal handle is at I am Paris Tyler. And then the business Instagram page is at Vibrant Comms, and that's COMMS, spelled for the agency's work. And you can see our client work and just updates on that page.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today. 40 minutes goes by really
It
fast.
does. It does. No, I enjoyed our conversation. I love being able to just talk about my journey and hope to be an inspiration. And like I said, I'm always learning and just love to always hear about how, founders are like, launch and just pivoting even during this time. It's always, a pleasure and just
Yeah.
inspiring to hear.
Well, we'll definitely be staying in contact. And so thank you again for being on. And so we can't wait to see more of what you'll be doing in the future. I know you'll be doing a lot.
Thank you so much, Shanice. I appreciate that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for listening to Discover Your Best Self. Don't forget to subscribe and comment. Follow us on Instagram at Discover Your Best Self.